everyone, and welcome to this week's Tuesday Techniques with me, Jackie Blakemore. So lovely to be here a bit later than normal today. I had some other appointments that got in the way, but better here now than not at all. So we are carrying on with our Tuesday Techniques sessions around altering patterns for trousers. So if you haven't been watching, then definitely go back and have a look. On the website, you'll see that I've put the recordings of the previous episodes that we've done on this topic, plus some others that we started kind of towards the end of last year. So here's the website URL. So be sure to go and check that out. We start from everything through kind of how to work with commercial patterns, how to take your own measurements, right through to how to modify sleeves, how to modify bodices, all kinds of different adjustments. So go back and have a look at those. But we're kind of finishing off the section that I was going to do on trousers. And today we are going to be looking at full thigh adjustments. So if you're on live, then great, ask any questions, send me a comment, let me know who's here. And if you're watching this in the replay, then please do add comments. You'll find this in the Facebook group, on the Facebook page, and in the Facebook group later. And definitely ask me questions, and I always try and go back and answer anything that you have asked. So I want to go through today the full thigh adjustments, but just before I do that, I just wanted to show you, this is partly for Jan, because Jan's been messaging me about all the things she's been making. So this is my new Medellin top, itch to stitch, with the leftover fabric that you might recognize from my little jacket that I made. I absolutely love it. It's a great fit, and for a wrap top, it doesn't gape or anything like that, and it's really easy to make. So I just wanted to show that off so you can see that in action. I also wanted to thank everyone for the messages I've been getting. So it's so lovely. I think I've mentioned this before, but it's quite difficult when you're just doing this on your own, and you kind of can't get so much feedback. So I love the emails, things that you send me. So please send me everything that you're doing and kind of what you're making. So a special mention to Kate today, because she sent me a photo of her trouser pattern pinned out and ready to go, and I think she was waiting for this session to do the pattern adjustments for today on the thigh. So this one's for you, Kate, today, and we'll see how we get on. Also, in making some of the adjustments that I've been making recently and doing my own toile, I've been finding out some different things that are going to be working for me, and I wanted to share those with you. So one of the things was this weekend, we were looking at some trousers. My mum and I were looking at trousers that fit well and trying to find out, well, what is it about those that's different to the toile that we were making. So as you know, I have a problem when I was fitting my toile, and in the back curve it was a bit too tight, and I was trying to work out in those 3 dimensions which way I needed to make those adjustments. So we got some trousers that actually fit really nicely in that area, and just started to have a look. And I just wanted to show you a tip so that you can do this yourselves at home. So if you have a pair of trousers that work really well for you, that you think are really nice, it might be that they need some other adjustments, like around the tummy, or they're maybe a bit tight in the thigh or something like that. But if they fit nicely around the bum, then I have some jeans here that I can just show you. So what you can do is, if you turn your trouser, one trouser leg inside out. So if I just show you. So this is a pair of jeggings that I've got that I think are quite a nice fit, but they're not ideal for this because this is a non-stretch pattern. So it's slightly different, the shape, but anyway, you'll get the idea. So turn one trouser leg the wrong way out, and then take the other one and feed it inside that leg. So you're just going to put that into the trouser leg that you've just turned inside out. So kind of feed it down through the middle of the trouser leg, and then grab that at the other end. And then just kind of shake it about until you get those together. So you should have, it looks almost like it's like a one-legged trouser, which is that's where we want to get to. Okay, but the beauty of this is that now you can see the crotch curve, because now what you'll see is, once you've kind of messed around with that and got that laid out, can you see now we can see the whole crotch curve on these trousers? That's really easy to see. Whereas when you kind of got the 2 legs showing, it's much harder to have a look at. And what I was spotting on these trousers, well, firstly, they're starting to pull a lot. So I'm a bit bigger in the bottom than these trousers allow for. Less cake for me then, I guess. But also this curve here for me on these trousers is actually quite scooped out. And when you put them on the grain, so the way to find the grain on the back trouser leg, for example, is put the 2 seams together. So kind of line it up so that you've got your 2 seams kind of on top of each other, and that should give you the center back of that piece should be on the grain. And so you can compare this to your pattern. So if you lay this on your table and then put your pattern over the top of it, line up where the straight grain is and just compare, you know, how that back curve, this is a bit kind of extended out, but how this back curve shape compares to the trousers that you're trying to make. Because some of the trousers that I've seen are actually quite shallow here. So they sort of come quite straight down, if I try and simulate that in this view. So they're a bit more sort of straight, and they've not got as much curve in this back. And that's great. If you've got a flat bottom, you don't really need all this. Can you see this is going to create quite a big space for you within the garments? But if you've got a flat bottom, you kind of want this to be less of a space. So you sort of want to make this come a bit narrower and a bit more, a bit less curved out. So you sort of want this curve to be a lot more shallow here. I'll show you a bit more on the pattern that I'm going to adjust in a second. But I just wanted to show you that little tip so that you can see how that looks in your trousers, and you can start to have a look at some trousers that you might have that do or don't work for you, you know, kind of do some comparisons. So hopefully that will help. I also just wanted to show you then on the tip that from the trousers that we had a look at the weekend, we spotted that it was kind of a bit more scooped out from the adjustments that we'd been making. Now, last week I talked about making a full bottom adjustment, and we used the cut and slide method. And what that did was it still kept pretty much the same shape to that bottom part of the back curve, but it does create more width across the bottom, you know, kind of around the hip area, which is great, and into the inner thigh. But what I found was that actually it didn't really achieve exactly what I was hoping for. So it's still a little bit tight even when I'd done that. So we were looking to see what extra adjustment, and I've seen this adjustment in a few other places. So I just wanted to show you quickly what that looks like. Oops. So let me just swap this over. So what I mean is, so this is my pattern that I've just kind of redrawn. I've taken some of the adjustments back out because they hadn't really worked for me, and I'd done a bit too much messing around with it. So I've gone back to the original pattern and just picked out the patterns, the adjustments that were working. And so I just wanted to show you this piece. So the original back curve on my pattern, and if you'll remember, we are using, this is the pattern that I'm using for this example, just because it was really simple. And there was a couple of other patterns that are quite similar to this, a simplicity one that I think Kate was using as well. It's just got a couple of darts at the front, a very simple waistband, and a couple of darts at the back. And I've tapered mine because I didn't want the full leg. But yeah, so this is the pattern that we're using. And on this pattern, I'm doing the size 16, but the back curve follows this line here. So can you see this purple line? That's the original sort of back curve here. And what we found was when we were looking at the ready-to-wear trousers that fit quite nicely, the back curve actually is a bit more scooped out. Can you see that? So it's slightly longer, which allows for a bit more space for the bottom. And it's a bit more scooped out. And then what I've done is I've just extended, because I had done this originally as well. So I've extended this crotch curve out at the crotch point. Now I'm going to try it with this where I've just extended it along the original crotch line. It might be that I have to bring this down slightly, but what I spotted on those trousers is it's almost like this for the bigger bottom, this kind of crotch curve comes and starts to come back up, so that when you join it onto the front, then you get a nice it means that this inseam then hangs straight, because what you want this to do is kind of wrap around your leg and still stay, and so you want this to kind of hang straight down that down your inseam, down the inside of your thigh. So so I'm going to try this, and I'll post some stuff in the Facebook group once I've made these adjustments, so you can see the photos, those kind of before and after. The other thing that I've also done, and this kind of comes into what we're going to talk about today, is that I've added, because you're going to take a little bit of fabric out of here, well, quite a bit actually in my case, didn't want to lose any width across this back hip area, so I've just added a 1/4 inch here, and I'll do the same on the front thigh, the front side seam as well. So that's just to compensate for the fact that I've cut some width out here, and I'm just a bit concerned I won't have enough across the bottom, but we'll try that out and I will let you know how I get on. And so if you do extend this crotch curve here, then you just need to blend this back into nothing at about the knee. So just kind of bring this line back to join the original seam line at the knee. Now, this will slightly extend the length of the inseam, and so you just want to make sure on your front pattern that you double check the length here. Now, on most patterns, this section is slightly longer on the back piece than it is, sorry, you can see that. This section here is slightly longer on the back piece than it is on the front. And the idea is that you ease this in slightly to the front inseam. You might notice that, particularly on jeggings and stuff like that, you might notice there's a bit more fabric here. So yeah, so I'm not too worried about that. I think that will work, but like I say, I will let you know once I have done that. So hi Mum. Mum says she's made the crotch curve alteration that we worked on, and it's worked really well. The back now fits so much better, as does the front. Still have to work on the tummy adjustment though, so great. So one of the other things that we spotted as well, I just changed my camera back, in light of that was I was struggling really to work out where the crotch point should be, and I think that was causing some of the fit issues that I was having. With my trousers. I think I was going too far back, so I just want to show you what I mean. So I'm just going to angle this down slightly. So you can't see very well because I've got black trousers on, but I think I was trying to take my crotch curve too far around the inner thigh. And when I've been spotting actually on the ready-to-wear trousers I've got, the front crotch point is actually much further forward than I was thinking, because I think because I've got a big bottom, I think it needed to be kind of in the middle, so I was going too far back. Now, the reason that's important is because as you lift your leg, if that's too far back, the trouser has got to pull more from the back to the front, and there isn't enough room to do that. So then it will feel like it's tight across this thigh area here. So if you're finding that, it could be that you've gone too far, you've got your front crotch length too far and your back one a bit too short. So the way that we found a kind of good reference point is, this looks a bit rude, but as you kind of lift your leg, there's sort of a tendon that sort of joins your leg to your hip, sort of in this crotch, this groin area here, and you sort of want the crotch point to be sitting just behind that, not too far back. So as you kind of lift your leg up, you'll feel sort of where that tendon is that sort of runs down here, and you just want the crotch curve to be just a little bit behind there. And then what that's going to do is make sure that as you are, my camera a bit, as you are moving your legs, that bit, you don't want that bit to move too much really, because you want kind of where your hinge point is, that needs to sort of be fairly static. And then the trousers will then just move around that area. So that's kind of my own, I've not read that anywhere or anything like that. It's just kind of my experimentation with how to find out where that point needs to be, because I think I was trying to do it too far underneath, and what I was finding was it felt too tight in the thigh. And even on these jeggings I've got on now, I can feel that the side seams even are quite far forward compared to where I might have put them if I was making it, you know, without checking. So I think having definitely a lot more room and a lot more fabric around the back, particularly if you've got the full bottom or fullness in that area, will definitely help in the movement, because you tend to be moving your legs forward rather than back. And so making sure those hinge points in your garment are in the right place will really help that. So hopefully that helps and gives you a few tips. The next thing that I wanted to just talk about was so let's get into now making our adjustments. So today we're going to make the adjustment for full thighs. So how do you know if you need this adjustment? Well, you might find that when you make your toile, it's maybe a bit tight around the thigh area. It's maybe pulling a little bit, maybe at the side you might get some wrinkles. So you can actually check your own thigh measurement. So again, fairly straightforward to do. Just grab my tape measure. So nice and easy as you're standing, and it's worth maybe checking both thighs as well, actually, because you might favour one leg or the other, or one might, and you want to go with the biggest one probably. So you're just going to take your tape measure and you're just going to wrap it around your leg. Now you want to make sure that you are, getting your tape measure level. So you don't want to be kind of coming up round here. It's not designed to be like the kind of top of your pants or anything. You sort of want to go level around just under sort of where your legs separate here. and then just around there and under your bottom. So you don't really want to be catching too much of that in there. So nice and level with the floor, and then take that measurement, take it 2 or 3 times, just make sure you can move. You want it reasonably snug, and then you can add ease in, and there'll be ease included in the pattern. So I just wanted to explain how to do that. Once you've got your measurement, then you can compare it to the measurement on the pattern. And the way that you would do that is that if you have your pattern pieces, I've got some samples here. Just bring my front and back pattern. So put your pattern pieces together at the side seam, draw on where your seam allowance is, and then overlap them so that you've got your, you know where the stitch lines are matching up, and make sure that they are sort of joined up kind of all the way down. And then what you're going to do is you're just going to measure from the seam allowance just below the crotch point here, across and to the seam allowance just below the crotch point here. And so you'll be able to measure that on your pattern, and that will tell you how big that's going to allow for on the thigh on this particular pattern. And that might be great. There might be plenty there. Now, as a minimum, kind of for the recommended ease, so they're just to be able to wear them without assuming that they're not stretch or anything like that. If this is just woven trousers, then the minimum recommended ease is 2 inches. So you want to try and allow for your body measurement plus 2 inches. That should be, this measurement should be at least that. Okay, and that will make sure that when you wear it, you can move around, it should be comfortable. So if you spot that it's too small, or if you've tried your toile and it looked like it was going to fit, but then it looks too tight, then there are a few things that will indicate whether it's tight around the hip or it's a different area. So we've talked about, and go back and look at some of the videos in terms of if it's tight around the hips, that will look different, you know, that will feel different versus if it's tight around the thigh. So if it's tight around the thigh, what you'll find is that there are some wrinkles kind of going out towards where the where you need more fabric, basically. So if you imagine as you're wearing your trousers, if I stand up a little bit here, this kind of outer thigh part here. If this is quite big here, then the fabric will be trying to stretch to cover that, so it will be pulling out, and you'll get some wrinkles kind of coming out this way, and you'll see it's sort of quite taut across the thigh and maybe across the side seam here. You might also find that it cups, the fabric cups under the bottom, so it's pulling round and not hanging straight at the back. And that could be a sign also that you need more room in the thigh. Front creases go kind of towards the outer seam, so you'll see that it sort of gathers up a little bit at the outer seam because there isn't enough fabric. And like I said, it could also be that the crotch point is too far back, so you might get some of those symptoms if you try to put your crotch point too far back, and as you move, then that might also feel like it's tight on the thighs. But there's also a slight difference in that you might have fullness all around your thigh, but you may have fullness just at the inside of your thigh, or more towards the outside of your thigh, depending on where you carry your weight and what your shape is like. So if you are more of a sort of pear shape, then you might find that you haven't got a lot of extra fabric here, extra flesh here, but yours is kind of more on this section here, kind of a bit more on the outer thigh. So I'm going to cover how to make the adjustment if you've got more flesh on your outside thighs, and then if you find that you've got more flesh on the inside, then what you might notice is more that the wrinkles that you get are kind of pulling around from the front into the inseam, and then the fabric can also bunch up around your inner thigh because it sort of gets all wrinkled up. And you'll often see as well all the wrinkles sort of are coming into the crotch area because all the fabric is trying to gather more fabric there because there isn't enough there at the moment. That often happens as well. Like me, if you've got a full bottom, then you might also experience some of these issues with the thigh. So you might want to release some, make this adjustment for the full thigh. Yeah, so I'm going to look at, so we're just going to talk about a general thigh adjustment. So I'm just going to share with you the easiest sort of one. If you're not sure where your weight is, then this is probably the best one to start with. And then we'll go into a full inner thigh adjustment, and then we'll do the full outer thigh adjustment. So let's get started. So I've got some mini examples here that I can show you, some little cutouts. So let's change my camera over. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with the full thigh. So let's imagine that we needed to add some, so I've got some little mini versions of my pattern here. So I'm just going to bring them here. Now with a thigh adjustment, you generally are going to make it on the front pattern piece and then again on the back pattern piece. So you're going to repeat whatever adjustment you make onto both pattern pieces. And that just means that it's evenly spread around the whole thigh. So because of that, so for this particular example, which is for just a general full thigh adjustment, what we're going to do is we're going to divide the amount that we need to adjust by 4. So you'll measure and you'll find out, so let's say your thigh is 25, and let's say the pattern is only 24. And then what you'll need to do is make sure that you're going to add at least your measurement plus 2 inches. So you want to make sure, sorry, this is you, this is the pattern. So you need 2 inches for ease. So you need it to be 27. So we're going to need to add 3 inches overall, which is quite a lot. So probably not a very good example. But what you would do is divide the 3 inches by 4, because we're going to make the adjustment on the inside and outside of the back pattern and the inside and the outside of the front pattern. So I'm just going to make my maths a bit easier. Let's say everything was 25. So let's say it was your actual measurements, but that would make it a bit too tight. That means we need 2 inches, which means if you divide that by 4, we would have to make a ½ inch adjustment on each in each place. Okay. So hopefully that makes sense. And then 4 times ½ inch is going to give us our full 2 inches. By the time we've sewn both of our seams on the thigh, then we're going to have that extra there. Okay, so to make our adjustment, all we're going to do is we're going to, if I start with the back thigh, I'll try and do these side by side so you can see them. Just grab my tape, wherever that is. So what we're going to do is we're just going to add that onto the pattern at those areas where we've said. So if we imagine, so what we want to do is we want to add our adjustment here at the crotch. So we're going to add in the equivalent of our ½ inch. I'm only doing this kind of small scale, so I'm just going to add a quarter just so you can see. So we're going to extend that, and then we're going to again blend it to nothing at the knee point, because we don't want the weight that we've got here, the extra that we've got needs to be in this area here, and so we're going to blend that to 0 at the knee. So I'm just going to bring this. I'm going to do it by eye, but you could use your curve, or you could use your curved ruler, anything like that. So that's our first adjustment. So that's our first equivalent of ½ inch. Okay. The next place that you're going to want to add it is then on the in the same place, but on the outside of the thigh. So I'm going to go here, and then again you're going to blend that up to the waist point to nothing, because we just want it at the hip, and then again down to the knee to nothing. So you can see that's going to be our other equivalent of ½ inch, and that's going to give us our extra width here. So you can see it's going to add up, and it sort of tapers that down so that you're getting kind of less at the knee. Okay, and then you'll do exactly the same for your front piece. So again, at the crotch point, I'm going to add my ½ inch and blend that down. And the same here. And then the equivalent on the front. So I'm just going to extend that out. And that's our first adjustment. So this is for a full thigh and just a general adjustment. And like I say, I would probably start with a small adjustment and see how that, how well that fits. You can always add more. And this is the main area that you're going to add it. So nice and straightforward, really, I think. Hopefully you found that one okay. So the next one that we're going to look at is the full inner thigh. So I'll just show you in the book the picture, because it's quite a good picture. So this is the full inner thigh picture. Can you see? So you can see all of the fabric is trying to gather up in this area here, and this is what we don't want. So we want to make sure that we are allowing more fabric, but equally we still want the inseam to hang straight. So we just have to be careful about how we balance this measure, this change, and this adjustment, because we want to keep the straight leg onto the grain, and so I'm going to talk about that as well. It's really important that we keep the leg part of the of your trousers hanging down vertically, otherwise it's going to start to kind of skew round on your body. And what you might find is, if you do need this adjustment when you put your trousers on, because it's trying to get more, it's trying to pull fabric from the back to the front through the inseam, you might find that they twist around the body. And what you might see is, if I just bring my front one, if you had a straight line drawn for your balance lines on your pattern, you might find that it's kind of it's rotating round the side, sorry, the other way around the side of your leg, as it's trying to pull the fabric round to the front, if that makes sense. So it might be going off towards this corner when you're wearing your toile. So if you see your line kind of coming down this way, this could be a sign that you do need to make this inseam adjustment, and then that might straighten that back up. Okay, so for this adjustment, what we're going to do is it's slightly different, and we're going to cut the pattern across the knee point. So I'm just going to start with the front piece, and again, you do the same on the front and the back. So I'm going to, this is like equivalent of my knee mark here. So I'm just going to cut my pattern piece here. And so if we stick this one down, it doesn't move. And then what you want to do is you want to shift this so that it's moving towards the inseam, because what we want to do is add here, and then it will add more, we'll be adding more here. And the amount that you move this across by is the amount of the adjustment that you want to make. Now, the only thing to be aware of is that you don't want to go any further than this being a kind of vertical line, really. So this being a straight line. Yeah, so if this, you can't go any further than right angles to the crotch point. So if that's my, just to kind of show what I mean, that's my crotch point there. I'm just going to use my ruler to line this up. So the furthest I can make my adjustment is to that point there, because I can't go, you don't want this sort of coming out, otherwise you'll end up with a weird shaped trousers. So the maximum you can go is to that point. So where this is a right angle here. Okay, so you don't want to go anywhere kind of beyond that, really. But hopefully you shouldn't need to make the adjustment that much. You might want to just consider upsizing the pattern and making other adjustments if that's the case. So if I move slide my pattern piece across by however much it is, so let's say again this was our kind of, so this would be, if you needed to add an inch around the thigh, then you would move this one by ½ an inch on this piece and then ½ an inch on the back piece. So I'm just going to move that across to there, and then you would stick that down. So I've literally just slid the piece from across towards the inseam. And then you're going to redraw your seam. If I just grab a different pen. So you're going to redraw your inseam to join up with your existing seam. And then you're going to do the same on the outside to join back to, you could probably do this one with a ruler, to join back to the bottom width. Okay. So what that's going to do is it's going to add more emphasis on the inseam, and you're going to do the same on the front and the back piece. So you'll end up with more fabric here, and then it blends out. The final change that you have to make on this one is once you have done this, so if I trace this whole piece off, actually it might be easier. The last thing that we just need to do is true up our grain line. So if I just show you how to do that. Just take these bits off. I'm just it's just hard to fold this cardboard, so that's I didn't want to do it that way. So if I cut this out, I'll just show you what I mean. So you want your trouser leg to be on the grain, and so we can do that. We can ensure that by folding this piece over. So all you would do then is just fold your piece in half, match those leg seams up so it's nice and straight, and then this becomes your new grain line. Okay, so that line there now that I've just folded becomes the new grain line, and that might be at a slightly different angle to the original one, because we've made this shift and we want this to, you've kind of changed the line of this this piece. But as we said before, that's what you want to do. If you find that you've got a problem with this twisting round on your leg when you try it on, then this is exactly what you need to do. You will need to adjust the grain so that it twists back and kind of levels itself up. Okay, so that is how we make an adjustment for the if most of your weight is on the inner thigh and you find you're getting a lot of bunching around the inner thigh, then this might be a better adjustment for you to try. Okay, so the last one that I just want to show you is on the outer thigh, and this is where, if you're more of a pear shape, you might find that your weight kind of sits more towards the outside. Oh, sorry, you would repeat this one, sorry. This change here you would also do on the back piece as well, so make sure that you repeat it on both, and again always moving towards the inseam, because we're trying to add more at this inseam area. Sorry, I should have said that. Yeah, so the last one that we're going to do is for the outer thigh, and we're going to use our kind of tried and true sliding method for this. So what we're going to do is identify, you could measure on yourself to see roughly whereabouts, how far down you think you need the extra. And then we're going to create one of our little rectangles here to give us the extra space. So let's say that we actually needed it level with the crotch line here, or just below the crotch line here. Then what we can do is we can draw our rectangle and slide out. So I'm actually going to draw my rectangle a little bit above the crotch line. And then below the crotch line. So you can have a look on yourself and measure, you know, how far down this side seam you want to make your adjustment. And then all we're going to do is cut out our little rectangle. And you'll have seen this method in the other videos if you've been watching those videos. Okay, so if I stick my piece onto here so it doesn't move about. Okay, and then all I'm going to do is just slide out by however much I need to add at that side seam. So if it's 1/2 inch, then I would slide out 1/2 inch. And again, remember, you're going to make this adjustment on the front and the back. So you only want to, and we're only doing it at the side seam, so we just want to divide it by 2. So let's say you wanted to make an inch adjustment, you would make 1/2 inch on the front and 1/2 inch on the back. And then when you've sewn that, that will give you 1 inch in total. Okay, because we're only adjusting 2 of the seams. All right, so once you've slid it out and you've got, so if this is your 1/2 inch in here, then just stick that back down. And then again, all you're going to do is blend from the waist to your new position. A better line than I can draw. And then back down to the knee point. Again, so this adjustment is literally just in the thigh area. And then you would do the same in the same position. So I would mark up on my front piece exactly the same area. And we're just doing this line at right angles to the grain line, if you remember. So we need these 2 lines to be at 90 degrees to the grain line. So we would just repeat this then for the front piece. And as always, you know, if you need to cut your pattern, then I would always recommend that you trace it off first and make the adjustments on the tracing, then you can always get back to your original pattern. So again, we would make our small adjustment here, so the same equivalent measurement here, and stick that down. And again, you would then make your, you'd blend your line, and then back to the knee point here. So that's going to give you, say, your 1/2 inch there and your 1/2 inch there, which equals a total of 1 inch for each thigh. Okay, so this is your, this is how you would do it if you just carry your weight kind of on your outer thigh. You can just make this adjustment here. And this will just add it to the outside. And like we said, if you find that you're getting more drag lines towards the out seam here, then it could be that you just need this small adjustment. If you're not getting a lot of bunching at the inside, at the inseam, then maybe just start with this and try adding a bit on at the side here, and that might just give you enough width to stop it, you know, to eliminate the problem. Okay. So, and pretty much for the reverse, if you've got thin thighs, lucky you. But if you have thin thighs, then again, you would do kind of the opposite of that. So you can bring in, you can just shave off some of the width sort of in this area. You could do the same thing. You could kind of do the cut and slide depending on where it is, and just take a small amount to reduce the side seams, these side seams by. Okay. So that's everything for this week's adjustments. Hopefully you found that useful. Lots of different options there to try. Like we've said before, ideal really to twirl your trousers and give these a go. And do them in the kind of order that we've talked about, really. So start with getting a nice fit around the sort of the girdle, the pelvic girdle area, so around your hips, around your waist first. Then start focusing kind of on the crotch area, and then work into the thighs. And then if you can do similar kinds of adjustments around the calf area as well to the thigh, but you would generally make those adjustments. If you've got a prominent calf, for example, then you would make that adjustment just in the back piece. And if you want more information on that, then just message me and I can share that with you. So we're kind of at the end of our original series for the Tuesday techniques that I'd originally planned. I've got some ideas for some other adjustments that people have asked about, and I'll try and post a schedule coming up onto the website and onto the Facebook group. So if there's anything in particular that you would like to see, then please let me know and I'll try and factor that in. But that's it for this week. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I look forward to catching up with you all again soon. Bye for now.